So I actually wasn't going to make another video this week, but I thought I might as well make one more. And I wanted to talk about Bill Burr. Now, I'm obviously like super late to the news. I mean, I guess not really, because he said he said stuff recently in the last 2 weeks about like billionaires and rich people. So I mean, it's always going to be kind of relevant. And obviously he had his feud with Ben Shapiro at the end of last year, which I do want to discuss as well. I basically want to talk about how the right have turned against Bill Burr. Now, I thought I'd made a video before on Bill Burr, and I actually had. This was like over 2 years ago, talking about some of his comments on capitalism being bad, and also the conservatives generally liking him. And I actually used to think he was conservative, because I remember watching The Mandalorian. Obviously, he has like a good character who's only in like a couple episodes, and I was like, oh, like, isn't that like that conservative comedian? And yeah, he said plenty of like anti-woke stuff before, like many comedians have. But in my video, I compared him to George Carlin, because George Carlin obviously said like loads of offensive stuff generally, but he also economically was very left-wing. And it appears that even if Bill Burr wasn't always this way, at least he's getting radicalized, and he was always fairly left-wing economically. But it feels like all of this stuff recently with late-stage capitalism has radicalized him, and that's why people like him, because he seems like a normal guy despite his like massive success. And I just wanted to talk about conservatives ditching him and his feud with Ben Shapiro, because he actually spoke about this a little bit recently, because he's doing Glengarry Glen Ross on Broadway, and that's just like a crazy stacked cast. I'd definitely go and see that. I saw it with Christian Slater in London. Obviously it's like a good movie anyway, but it's him, Bob Odenkirk, and Kieran Culkin. So it's like super stacked cast to see on stage with like a play that actually is relevant, to be fair. Like, even though Glengarry Glen Ross was written by a conservative, I'm pretty sure, the actual like substance of it could be interpreted in quite a left-wing way as well. So today I want to talk about basically the right going from loving him to now hating him, and just how he generally like appeals to everyone by saying stuff that a lot of us want to say. And the one thing I will say about Bill Burr, and you'll probably notice, by the way, maybe I'll talk about some of his comments. The one thing I'll say in terms of privilege is he's so rich and famous, he can say stuff the rest of us can't. Because some of the stuff he said recently, I was thinking about, if I said that on YouTube, would my channel get taken down? And I'm actually not sure about that. I think at the very least my video would probably be removed from YouTube. But all of that coming up for you today. Please like the video and follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Instagram and Blue Sky, and check out my various other Instagrams for my travel content and gaming content. And also, if you want to support my channel, become a YouTube member or become a patron, and let's get into the rest of the video. So before we go into like a bit of the history of Bill Burr talking politics, let's just talk about the recent stuff. So basically, he responded to Ben Shapiro. Sadly, it was in like a New York Times piece, which was like behind a paywall. I couldn't get through even using reader mode on iPhone. That's a fun hack for people. But basically, it says here, Wesley Stancer reporting for Entertainment Weekly. So he talks about this. He says, all he knew is if he put woke on what he said, it would make more money. I don't even know who he is, but that guy is a jerk off. Elsewhere in the interview, he says, I want to lose my edge. I don't want to go through life angry. And here's the thing, if you have an edge, you can never lose it. I can tap into that whenever I need to. You bark at the other dog and make it go away. I know how to do that. So yeah, not like a substantial comment. I saw some people like reporting it like he's like destroyed Ben Shapiro. It's just a little comment he said. But obviously like aware of just Ben Shapiro's insane reaction, which we're going to talk about. Because not only did he make like a really long video responding to what he said about Luigi Mangione, he also wrote an article for the Daily Wire. I didn't realize they had paid articles you can read, like you have to have a subscription. But also apparently, after he recently roasted Elon Musk, I'll see if I can play that for you if I can find the clip.
That Twitter guy, he literally sieged Heil. He didn't just Heil. You know, you can accidentally Heil. Hey! Oh, so, I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean like that. But when you add the sieg, you meant it. Because Elon Musk couldn't get any pussy in fucking high school? Like we're really going to fuck this whole thing up? Like, what does he feel he's not getting as a white man? I mean, it's like you're a fucking billion. You get more money than anybody. You're still upset? Like, how do you have the bandwidth with the amount of fun you're shooting rockets off and all of this stuff? You still have the bandwidth and you to be like not liking people? Because they don't look like you?
He basically says his Twitter account was flagged. So comedian Bill Burr said his Twitter account was flagged after he said on his podcast a few weeks ago that Elon had lost his mind.
I never look at my emails. I was scrolling through my emails and it said my Twitter account had been flagged for inappropriate. I don't even tweet anymore. It had been flagged for whatever. What a baby. How about the fact that the Twitter guy he's not even from here. He's from South Africa. He comes to this country and wants to turn it into a fucking dictatorship. He doesn't feel that we deserve democracy. Can you just imagine doing that? Going to another country and just deciding, yeah, you know what? I'm going to change this form of government because I've decided. Yeah, he doesn't mind living under a dictatorship as long as he's on the good side of it.
Do I believe that Elon personally did this? Yes. Like, Elon is so thin-skinned. 100% he saw what Bill Burr said because it's probably going viral on Twitter just with like randos, like not even like hardcore leftists, and he was like, let me find his account and restrict it. He has like a history of doing this. I talk about Elon Musk way too much anyway, but like this guy just being the most powerful man in the world, it's just so annoying how all the fictional depictions of villains inspired by Elon Musk are like even more kind to the reality. Like all the villainous figures in media inspired by him are like better than him, like in terms of more competent and just like better people, even though they're evil. Ben Shapiro says he used to like Bill Burr. And that's because Bill Burr, like he was saying there, is like an edgy comedian, like maybe a George Carlin back in the day. And because he said stuff that often criticized liberals as well, conservatives thought he was their friend. Now, he did say, obviously, like lots of stuff we would disagree with. I might read some quotes out and we can talk about them. But at the same time, if you actually go through a lot of what he said, what conservative Americans seem to not understand is when you attack liberals, it doesn't mean you're a conservative. There's like memes going around of like, I've seen on Twitter and Blue Sky that when you're just like saying bad stuff about the Democrats and conservatives come into your replies, like agreeing with you or like trying to be your friend. And it's true that like conservatives can't seem to entertain the thought that you can be really left wing and hate the Democrats. They just paint it all as one thing. So if you go on the conservative subreddit, like my favorite, I referenced them on my last video, you just see like loads of upvoted posts like, comedian Bill Burr savages CNN as un-American pieces of shit. Bill Burr's an American hero. He always sets those straight who need it. Bill Burr stands by the Mandalorian's Gina Carano, calling her firing bizarre. 1,500 upvotes. So more like upvotes, 5,000. He's obviously said like anti-trans stuff in the past. Here's one that the conservatives love. What do you mean men can get pregnant? What the fuck are they talking about? Burr asked while conducting an online search of the subject during his podcast. As a lefty, I don't understand. Well, you know what? It's the extreme left. You know what I mean. A man cannot get pregnant. We're not born with a womb over there. Unless I will tell you this in the future, that's going to happen. And yeah, obviously they love this. And you see like loads of conservative media. They used to run him as like the anti-woke comedian. Breitbart posting loads of stories about him. So yeah, even Ben Shapiro, if you type in Ben Shapiro, Bill Burr, you can find these. He has posted videos praising Bill Burr in the past about like how much he likes his stand-up routine. Bill Burr is, I wouldn't call it co-worker politics because he seems smarter than that, right? Like I've used this term before. It's basically like when someone has like incomprehensible politics, which take like aspects from like every bit of the spectrum, and you're just like, yeah, that's co-worker politics. That's someone who doesn't pay attention to politics and just has like these random opinions. I don't think that of Bill Burr. I do think he doesn't really understand maybe the political spectrum as much when he's talking about the far left, because unless he's been super radicalized in the last like 3 or 4 years, some of the shit he is saying is like pretty much as far left as you can get in terms of economics, right? Like, so he's the far left. He's saying stuff that loads of communists are loving, right? Maybe he might be a bit more socially conservative. Even the anti-trans stuff he was saying, he doesn't really seem to understand like how that's possible. He's saying, oh, men can't get pregnant, right? Obviously trans men can give birth and can have children and stuff. So it seems like he doesn't understand that. But at the same time, maybe he just is a bigot on these things. I haven't heard him say anything recently. Maybe he has. So yeah, that's why conservatives love him, because he says stuff like this. So then, of course, back in 2022, he was saying anti-capitalist stuff, or just generally questioning a viewer of his podcast, like who was saying that socialism has always failed. He talks about why capitalism is actually bad, right? And lots of people like this.
Last week you mentioned you don't know why people demonize socialism. I was really taken aback at that statement. Oh, Jesus Christ. Every country that has tried socialism has failed and it's responsible for tens of millions of deaths. All right, so would you say capitalism is working? And it is not, when like, what is it? Like 99% of the wealth is in like 2% of the people's hands. All of these tent cities, you're telling me this is working? You don't think capitalism is responsible for tens of millions of deaths? You're really sort of looking the other way with what capitalism has done to other countries. All the sweatshop labor, all the wars we've fought in over air quote freedom, where most of it is about, natural resources. All of these fucking countries where we've gone in and, stuck in heads of the government that are going to do what we want to do so we can take advantage of them. To sit there and look at capitalism like it's, But once again, I don't even think you can blame capitalism on that. I think you just can blame sociopathic people that both crave and ascend to positions of power. Corporations are buying houses now. They're just buying them up. Literally the American dream, buying a house. They're going to take that away in this country. This is everything that we're doing too. Control the media, like promoting the government. Control the media. There's two guys that own the media.
Now, he's taken this a step further, praising Luigi Mangione and talking about wanting to put billionaires down like dogs. And this is what got him into this dispute with Ben Shapiro. Pretty one-sided dispute. Like, Bill Burr didn't respond really, apart from what he said recently. So Bill Burr obviously said, I'll see if I can find the clip. If not, I'll just read it.
You know what's annoying me about this kid who killed this CEO is none of these news programs are talking about the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how these insurance companies treat people when they're at their most vulnerable, after we've all given them our money every fucking month, and now we finally need you, and all you do is deny us. And then these pussies and all of these things are taking the pictures of their CEOs off their websites. I got to be honest with you, okay? I love that that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You just don't pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. That's why these people look, oh, my God, he was just, walking into a hotel. It's like, okay, but what was his job? What did he do? What was the results of it?
He also told Variety in a recent interview, the funny thing when that CEO got whacked was watching CEOs have to be uncomfortable. I'm sure they didn't learn anything, but it's like, this is how you make everybody feel day to day as you apply pressure, because that's how business is done. How are you leaving this burning wreckage of destroyed lives as you restructure and consolidate? It's fun to see them worry. He actually said this recently, which triggered conservatives again, but he talked about putting billionaires down like dogs.
People that are struggling out there because of these billionaires, and they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. Like, I am so tired of hearing about people going to bed worried about what's going to happen next week. There is so much fucking money in this country, and there's so much work being done, and if you work a full fucking week at a job, you should be able to pay your fucking rent. You shouldn't have to go out and get a job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country because then the kids don't see their parents and they're not getting the upbringing that they need. Billionaires, they need to be put down, like rabid dogs. They're like rabid with greed and just going out and just dividing everybody.
So obviously why this type of rhetoric resonates with coming from someone like Bill Burr rather than someone who might be like outwardly like a left-wing political commentator or actor or something, someone who's like less curated in what they say, is because like lots of like everyday people like Bill Burr, right? People who think they're maybe not left-wing politically, but most of us can agree economically the system is screwing us all, right? And that's something that's becoming increasingly clear with like each generation's view of like the system working for us. And it resonates because he has the balls to say something controversial, which a lot of people are feeling right now. Like the reason people didn't really care about what happened to that CEO is because he's a CEO of a corporation that is like one of the worst healthcare corporations, right? So in that, they're making money off not giving people coverage and actually causing people to die. They're profiting off people's deaths, essentially, even though they're paying into the system where you're meant to actually cover them. Like most insurance things, it feels like a complete scam. And obviously in a country like America, there is like no universal healthcare. So most people actually have to buy into the system to even potentially get coverage, but maybe they don't at the same time. So generally, yeah, when you're profiting off that and you're making millions and millions every single year, people won't care. And it's refreshing, I guess, because a lot of famous people are not going to even say what I just said there. But Bill Burr will go one step further and say all this like crazy inflammatory stuff, which people like love hearing because it's so alien to our discourse. Like I said, he does have a little bit of privilege in terms of his wealth and fame because he can say this stuff, where I think a lot of us can't really say this stuff without consequences, losing our jobs, losing our YouTube channels or Twitter accounts, perhaps. I totally condemn everything Bill Burr says, by the way. As Bill Burr was supporting Luigi Mangione, like many Americans, Ben Shapiro was absolutely disgusted. Now, Ben Shapiro, among just supporting terrible policies his whole life and saying like so much insanely gross shit, has supported Israel unequivocally his whole career, especially when they completely destroyed Gaza. He was pretty much running every single disinformation campaign on his Twitter, personally knows Netanyahu, by the way. So for this guy to lecture anyone about celebrating death, this guy celebrates death every single day on his Twitter account. And he writes that basically Bill Burr has gone woke and he's gone full arsehole. So this is an article in December that he wrote for paid members on the Daily Wire. So this makes me laugh. I used to enjoy Bill Burr's work. On occasion, I still do. He's a comedian, which means he's very hit or miss. Once upon a time, I was such a fan that I actually bought tickets for me and my wife and two of my friends to go see him. It turned out to be one of the worst shows I'd ever seen in my life because Burr has become woke. Which is really funny because, firstly, I bet Ben Shapiro actually did enjoy that, and he's only saying this in hindsight. And secondly, even if we're talking about left wing, Bill Burr isn't woke. Like, if we're talking about in terms of liberal identity politics around social issues, Bill Burr isn't woke. Like, he said some pretty bad stuff. And pretty bad stuff that conservatives loved only 2 years ago. But apparently now he's woke because he says he hates billionaires. So over time, I think he became embarrassed that many people on the right thought he was funny. So he decided he was going to go woke. He doesn't actually seem to care conservatives like him, by the way. The show I saw was so bad that he got frustrated with his audience. The audience was not laughing at his jokes because his jokes were basically about how Floridians were a bunch of anti-gay racists. And Floridians reacted badly because that's not true. There's a lot of gay people who live in Florida, as well as many Hispanics, blacks, and Jews that live there as well. And yet, newsflash for Ben Shapiro, a lot of those people who are Hispanic and white Jewish in Florida are insanely racist and probably some of the most racist people in America, and also run the Floridian government, which is heavily far-right Republican. So, yeah, Bill Burr, if he says there's many anti-gay racists in Florida, he'd be correct in that assessment. And diversity in Florida doesn't mean people can't be racist. So he ended up cutting the show early and walking off stage. The reason was he was totally disconnected from his audience. That disconnect has continued. Not long ago, he appeared on Bill Maher's show, where he declared solidarity with the pro-Hamas students on campuses. Now he's proclaiming he's very happy that CEOs are walking around in fear for their lives. We tend to give comedians more leeway to say edgy things because they're trying to be funny, but it's not clear to me that Burr is attempting to be funny. This week, he explained to me that he's perfectly fine with having CEOs having to live with full-time security because they fear that they might be shot, because they're murderers too. Burr openly cheered the murder of United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson because he says they should live in fear and they don't act in a way that he would have them act in a system that he has no fixes for, by the way. What he said is truly evil. He's saying you should live in fear if you're the CEO of a company that does things that Burr deems to be bad or wrong. Is it just Burr? Is there no one criticising private health insurance companies in America who profit billions off the deaths of other people? It's just Burr, one comedian saying that. And again, Ben Shapiro celebrates death every day of Palestinians and people he deems subhuman. So for anyone like that to be taking the moral high ground at a comedian making light of one very wealthy person dying is just so stupid. But this is just such a stupid argument, considering like who this guy promotes all the time on his channels, like Republicans and conservatives. Now, we have laws on the books, for example, that prevent crimes like fraud and embezzlement. We have the laws on the books that punish criminal activity. If you don't like the system, and many people don't, the proper response to that system would be legislation. In a democratic republic, the way to fix problems is to have open discussions of the details of their problems and craft regulations or legal fixes. Donald Trump is the president and you helped make him president and you support Donald Trump's agenda and you support him as the president. Guy who has broken the law like 1 million times and got away with it, president again, has had multiple charges dropped. You're saying to people that they should have faith in the system, that this political party that's in power will actually make changes to help people not have crazy insurance bills that won't actually even cover them when they get sick. That's Ben Shapiro's solution. It's just a class issue, isn't it? It's that he doesn't want the poors to get better benefits, so you gaslight them by saying, this is not the way to get change. The way to get change is through the democratic process, which is heavily corrupted by capitalism and heavily actually infiltrated and funded by the same types of people as Brian Thompson. Do not say that's a good thing that CEOs should live in fear for their lives because Burr deems them morally inferior. This is full stop evil. It is evil. I don't care what complaints exist with the health insurance company. The notion that the solution to those complaints is the murder of an executive is sick. If you were living in a tyrannical society with no legal correctives or alternatives in terms of Medicaid, which does exist, and no alternatives in terms of other health insurance programs, then an argument could be made for there to be full-scale monarchic tyranny. But that's not the system in which we live, and that lie leads to greater violence, and it leads to justification of all violence. So probably like the wealthiest YouTuber has a company that pumps out so much garbage conservative propaganda every single day. Someone who revels in the deaths of Palestinian children amongst other groups of people as well. He's someone who's saying, yeah, you cannot celebrate the death of someone terrible. And it's only Bill Burr who's deeming that guy morally inferior. It's only Bill Burr who's saying the health insurance industry is crap. And we have other options, Medicaid, or other insurance you can buy. But the problem is, conservatives actually believe this. And that's who we're dealing with. These rich conservatives actually believe in this pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, because in their mind, they did it too. They worked hard, they rose through the ranks, and the reason they have healthcare that they can afford is because they worked harder than you, and they worked smarter than you. And if you don't have healthcare, that's your fault. So you can't be angry at health insurance CEOs. They're simply filling something the market wants. And if you actually want reform to legislation, just pressure your congressperson. It's that simple, actually. In some way, Ben Shapiro must know all the politicians he pushes on his network. He must know none of them give a shit about making the system easier. Republicans just passed something that's going to cut funding to like all social programs drastically, and that's what Doge is doing as well. And Ben Shapiro doesn't criticize that. So yeah, you don't get to lecture Bill Burr for saying something you find like undesirable or something, because you say way worse stuff every single day, and you support this system that kills hundreds of thousands of people every decade in America from a lack of healthcare, and you're actually supporting people who are going to make that number drastically increase. So it's pretty clear that your average conservative, I don't think, now hates Bill Burr, but I do think this rhetoric will probably make them uncomfortable, because conservatives more than other groups are completely brainwashed by neoliberal capitalism, where they think that they will one day become rich as well. At the same time, you're seeing with the reaction to Ben Shapiro's videos about Luigi Mangione, and also just Luigi Mangione as like this figure, he has like a very positive perception. I would say Luigi Mangione, if you polled Americans, would probably be more popular than nearly every single politician. And to people like Ben Shapiro, the answer would be everyone who supports Luigi Mangione or doesn't mind what he did, they're all terrible immoral people, right? Not that maybe the system is so bad people now are supporting more extreme things happening. But that's what's going to happen. When you create a system that doesn't care for anyone, you are just creating the conditions for people to be more violent. And Ben Shapiro's solution to this is, well, just, let's have a democratic debate about it. While these same people completely control our politics. No, it's just so insane. But yeah, that's why a lot of the conservative political class don't like Bill Burr for saying these things, right? Because Ben Shapiro is a CEO, basically. I don't know if that's his title, but he's the co-founder of the Daily Wire. He is insanely wealthy. He is someone who profits off hatred, profits off the backs of his own workers, even though those workers are like terrible people, like Brett Cooper, for example. But at the same time, I think your average Joe conservative, maybe who even voted for Trump, doesn't hate Bill Burr for saying this stuff, because what I see in the discourse right now, the only people still arguing for capitalism is people like Ben Shapiro. I don't think your average person now is arguing for capitalism, because we all realise it's terrible. But that's also why far-right movements are gaining steam, because they're saying, well, your problems are this, your problems are that. While leftists are saying your problems are the economic system. But it's clear that people are dissatisfied with the status quo, so they're looking for answers. So in that way, yeah, I don't think conservative fans of Bill Burr will mind him just because economically he's taken a bit of a difference of opinion with other people, because he still said plenty of anti-woke stuff before. But it's people like Ben Shapiro who want to gaslight you, thinking Bill Burr is wrong for pointing out the inequality inherent in the American system. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I actually didn't cover any of this before, which to me kind of blows my mind because I cover so much stuff. I just completely ignored this. But that is me finally covering it. Let me know what you guys think. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.